Hi guys, my name is Benson Kaczynski and welcome back to the final part of our 3-part video series about making a professional quality video on a zero budget. In this video we're going to be talking about post-production, which is the process of taking all the content you've created during production, putting it together and creating your final video. What if I want to apply effects to the clips, or animate them across time? If we click on one of the clips and click the Inspector tab, we now have all the information related to the clip, which we're able to edit. Let's look at some of these options. Opacity controls the transparency of the clip. Zoom moves in or out by scaling the clip up or down. Position moves the clip, rotation rotates the clip, and anchor point changes the point at which zooming occurs, in this case to the left of the clip. There is also pitch and yaw, which create an interesting pseudo 3D effect. You can also flip the image upside down or back to front with a single click. Double click on these tabs to change their visibility. There is an inbuilt option to crop the clip, but let's say I want to animate and change this clip across time. Let's say I want to zoom the clip in and follow these people as they run across the dunes. Let me move to the start of the clip. The properties of this clip that I want to change are the zoom and the position. So to begin, I'll click on the little diamond next to each of them. You can see that there is now two options on the clip, a wave symbol and a keyframe symbol. Let's change our zoom. I'll zoom the image in and I'll move the image across and down so it fits on the people. I'm now going to move my playhead to the end of the shot and use the arrow keys so I can move backwards to see the final frame, and move the image across and down to keep them in the middle of the frame. If I now play the clip back, I'm now following these people. By clicking on this waveform button, I can now see the positions in a graph form. As you can see, the position is now shifting. I can take these points and move them however I want to dynamically alter the animation. This is the X position of the clip. I'm now editing the Y position of the clip. This is just to demonstrate that you can alter any of these properties and then dynamically change them across time. To remove a keyframe, just delete them by clicking on them and hitting delete. The animations have now been disabled. We can then go back to the transform panel and hit the reset button next to each of these features to return our footage to how it was previously. Let's take rotation this time. Create a keyframe, move to the end of the clip where the clip is still visible, and rotate to 360 degrees. You can see the animation graph changing as I change the value of this keyframe. Playing it through, you can see our effect has now been applied. If I wanted to apply a smooth end and beginning to these keyframes, I can click on the keyframe and click Ease Out, or Ease In for the end frame. This now adds handles to the keyframes, which allow me to change the curve more specifically. The video now ramps in and up, which creates a smoother animation. This covers the basic tools of editing. I'd like to talk about what to do in the situation when your video and audio tracks aren't in sync. To do this, let's create a new timeline in our timeline bin. Let's call this one Audio Sync. In our new timeline, I'm going to bring in some footage of one of the clips I recently made for a music video with my a cappella group. In this video, I'm singing along to a guide track which has been provided separately. I'd like to sync the audio and the vision together so that the mixed audio track replaces the audio that I recorded with my camera. Let's bring in this clip to the timeline. Remember, if you can't see the audio, go to the timeline view options and make sure the waveform is selected. Let's make this a bit bigger so we can see the audio more clearly. I'm now going to go to my audio folder that I brought in and bring in this clip, which is the final mix of the song that we are singing. I'm just going to take the whole song and drag it underneath the audio. I'm going to show you two methods of how you can sync up audio tracks. It can be done manually by linking the audio peaks together. This takes a bit of time, but can be done quite effectively. I'll zoom in so I can easily see where the audio peaks are, and now I can simply line up the audio so that they match in time. Playing the video along, I can see that the clips are lined up fairly well. These audio tracks have now been manually aligned. I can now disable the top track by hitting the M button. This will mute the track in playback, so only the bottom one plays. Alternatively, holding down Option and clicking on the audio, then right-clicking and unticking Enable Clip. This section is now disabled, with the audio below playing on top of it. This method works well, but if you have to do this for many clips, it is quite inefficient. Thankfully, there is an easier way to do this. Let's remove these clips. You have the option in DaVinci Resolve to add a pre-recorded track to a piece of video before you bring them into the edit. To do this, the audio tracks and the video clips need to be in the same bin. So I'm going to create a new bin called Sync. To make this easier to do, let's go back to the Media tab to import our files. I'm going to return to my desktop and open up the sync bin I've just created. I would now like to sync this clip with this audio from the audio folder. Now that both of these are in the same bin, I can select both of them, right-click and say Auto Sync Audio. I then say Based on Waveform and Append Tracks. Let's go back to the Edit tab. If I now drag the video clip in, you can see that the second audio track has automatically been added. DaVinci Resolve has used the audio information to sync them up. This is probably going to be much more accurate than doing it manually, so this is the method you should use, unless it doesn't work. I can now mute the original track, and we're back to where we were before. I chose Sync Based on Waveform and Append Tracks, so that both audio clips are included, for the purposes of being able to check whether the audio has actually aligned correctly. Now that we've aligned the video and the audio, let's talk about special effects. It's important to note at this point that special effects are beyond the scope of this video production series, and that for most video productions, they are not particularly necessary. However, by adding special effects to your video, you can add a premium quality to your video that you mightn't have been able to achieve otherwise. There are two ways to add effects. In the Effects Library panel on the bottom left, there are a number of preset effects which you can drag onto your clips. For example, box blur. I can drag this effect onto the clip, which applies a blur to the clips. If I go over to Inspector and then to the new Open Effects tab, I can change the settings of this blur effect. I can change the strength of the effect and change the effect to replicate around the edges so that I don't get missing pixels. Let's drag the light rays effect onto the clip. Double-clicking on light rays enables the options. So this is one method in which effects can be applied to your clips. However, if you want more specific effects than this, you will need to use the Fusion tab. Let's explore this now. I'll delete these effects and we'll move to the Fusion tab. The Fusion panel works by using nodes. When you have a clip selected and open Fusion, you see this diagram of the nodes in the lower half of the screen. This node is the media input and this is the output. Consider it as a process from left to right. Media comes in here and comes out here, and things happen to it in the middle. So let's apply an effect. Let's say we want to make this green screen transparent, which is why this was shot against green screen in the first place. If we right-click on the grid, add tool, and go to matte, we see there is an option called Delta Keyer. This is one of the green screen keying effects inside of Resolve. To apply it, we simply reroute this connection from media output to first go to the Delta Keyer and then to media output. The effect is now being applied. Once this has been set up, we can go to the options. Under background color, hold down on the eyedropper tool and drag across the clip to select the color that we want. I'm going to select a color near to my head to make the keying effective. The chroma key has now been applied, and for most cases, this will probably be fine. We can tweak this a bit more by going to View Mode and seeing Matte. This shows us which pixels have been made transparent and which haven't. You can see that there is some slight artifacts happening around the edge of the screen, as well as in my hair and in my jacket. By going to the matte settings of the effect and changing the threshold, we can clip out these effects. We've now adjusted it so that the foreground is white and the background is black. Let's change this back to final result. We can zoom in further to see more of the effect. If we change the replace mode to hard color, it better replaces the green edges where the light from the green screen is spilling around. Let's change the zoom back to normal. And now let's return to our edit mode. You can see that the effect has now been applied to our footage. What can we do with this? Let's say we wanted to change the background that I'm singing against. I'm going to go to the free stock footage folder that I've imported. I'm going to lift up the video clip and I'm going to bring in this cloud footage from below. Let me trim this clip so we can better see what we're working with. And I'll zoom in using the zoom tool. Now if I play through, you can see that I'm singing in front of moving clouds. Because I'm shot against a green screen that was lit correctly, this effect is working pretty well. You might not get a result as good as this if the color of your background is not even. Let's see if I can change the color of this shot to better match the background. Let's go back into Fusion and create a new tool. I'm going to go to Add Tool, Color, and then select Color Curves. Let's now rewire this node setup so it goes from Delta Keyer to Color Curves and from Color Curves to the media output. We can now edit the color curves in this menu. Now that we've covered effects and audio, let's talk about titles. Inside of Resolve, there are a number of preset titles which you can create. Basic titles and a number of preset special effect titles. Let's bring in the left lower third title. This has created a very basic title in the lower left corner of the footage. In the inspector window, we can change the title, change the font to something we'd like, change the styling, and change the color. As you can see, this style is pretty basic, but it does get the job done if you want a quick title. You can also click on the title manually to edit it. As you can see, I don't know what I'm writing. If you highlight a part of the text, you can change the settings just for that section. This is useful for creating a title and a subtitle. Deselecting the text allows you to edit all of the text at once. As another example, I can even color text individually by highlighting a section and then coloring it like so. These titles can then be treated the same as any other piece of footage, faded in and out, as well as treated as a video with all of the same effects such as rotation, pitch, yaw, zoom, and position. It's important to note that you should always change the size of your text in the text window. If you change the text in the video tab, it will create text that is very highly pixelated and not high quality. But what if we wanted to create something a bit more exciting than this? Let's explore the Fusion 3D titles by bringing them into our timeline. This is a nice dynamic lower third, which shows the first line of text, followed by the second line of text in a 3D arrangement. And as you can see under the Fusion tab, we have the text. Let's change the first line of text to hello, and the second line of text to goodbye. This text is entirely customizable, just as before, but keep in mind you might break the effect if you make the text too large. Here's a more professional lower third, which is much more simple and less esoteric. I can write in my name and my subtitle in the relevant boxes. If I change the length of this clip, the length of the animation is automatically adjusted. As you can see, there is more than enough exciting preset titles available here for you to use for your video production without having to get into the intricacies of generating your own special effects. If you click on one of these presets and go to the Fusion tab, you can see that each of these effects has been built with a complex node system. There's plenty of options available to customize these effects without having to go into the Fusion menu. With these tools in hand, you should have everything you need to create a high-quality professional video in DaVinci Resolve. There's one final element for us to cover, which is how to export your video. Let's export the timeline of the previous edit we made, called Export Sequence. Double-click to open it. Once we're happy with the clip, we'll go to the Deliver tab. In the Deliver tab, we have a preview of the timeline that we've just been editing in, as well as a picture of all the clips that are in our edit, and the render settings that we're going to choose. Thankfully for us, there are a number of preset options available for us which allow us to export simply and easily. For instance, H.264 Master is a preset which exports for a good quality MP4 file, which you can use as a high-resolution export to upload to social media. There are specific formats specified for Vimeo and YouTube as well, if you would like to upload there. Let's go to the custom settings and see what we can play with. Let's call this My First Video Export. I'd like to render a single clip. I want to export video. Keep in mind there are many other codecs available. H.264 is a standard one if you want a robust but also lightweight codec. You can change the rest of these settings as you desire if you need it for specific purposes. We can then add the render to the render queue. A window will appear which will prompt us to change where we want to save our export. For now, I'll just put it on the desktop and click Save. This job has now been added to the render queue. If all else is equal and ready to go, we can select Start Render. Keep in mind that this render was pretty fast because we didn't have many effects applied. Let's have a look at our exported file. Here it is on the desktop. Let's open it up. Always check the file after it has exported to make sure it's playing correctly. I'm pretty happy with that file. If you right-click on the video and say Get Info, you can see the size of the clip. You can see that this one is 36.4 megabytes, which for a video this length is probably okay. If a video seems to have a very small file size, then something may have gone wrong in the render. Let's export another clip. Let's click the ProRes Master Preset button, change our name to My First Video ProRes, and select Add to Render Queue. Now let's select Start Render. Let's see if there's any differences between these two files. As you can see, the file size is significantly higher for the ProRes video. This means that the ProRes video has much more information in it compared to the H.264 video that we exported originally. For your purposes, you may not be able to identify a clear difference between the two files. For our purposes, both of these videos appear to be pretty good quality. Something that might not be noticeable on your computer screen may be very noticeable when blown up on a large screen. If you run into problems or still need further help with understanding how to use DaVinci Resolve, there are many free tutorials available online which cover all aspects of the program. Thank you for watching this video series. I hope that the content that I've covered in these videos has been useful to you and that you can make full use of them in your video projects. Good luck and all the best.